What's up everybody, welcome to 10 of the biggest player achievements in old school RuneScape history. Before we start this one, a few quick things to mention. Unlike the previous video, these achievements are not going to be ranked, it is simply going to be a showcase. Also, there have been hundreds of insane things players have done on this game, so it would be impossible to fit them all into a single list. So this is going to be my personal favorite 10 achievements. When I was a little bit over halfway through writing the script and editing this video, my friend Mac H informed me that he had already made a video similar to this one around a year ago. Thankfully, his list and mine only had a few of the same things on them. So if you guys do enjoy this video and want to see more, I'll leave a link at the top of the description to his video as well. With all this being said, let's go ahead and start the video. Number 1, the first player to complete the Inferno. The Inferno is one of the most challenging pieces of content to ever be added to old school RuneScape. It is similar to the fight caves in that a player must go through multiple waves of monsters to eventually reach the final boss. Upon completion, the player is awarded an Infernal Cape, which is regarded by many players as one of the most prestigious items in the game. It was Jagex's ultimate goal to create a piece of content that was incredibly challenging and would require the player to be a master of the game's combat mechanics to complete. With it being this difficult, Jagex wanted to reward the first player to complete the Inferno, so they set a prize of a lifetime membership, a fully paid trip to RuneFest 2017, and a real-life version of the Infernal Cape itself. After its initial release, tens of thousands of viewers went to Twitch to watch hundreds of streams of players attempting to be the first to complete it. Around a day after its release, streamer V the Victim was the first person to ever reach the healer stage of the final fight. He had the boss at less than 300 of its 1200 hit points, and everyone was sure he was going to be the first to complete it. But then the boss spawned healers and his run took a turn for the worse, and he died shortly after.
He's full HP. That's insane. How do you beat that? How do you beat those healers? They healed it so fast.
At this point, players were beginning to think that the Inferno was impossible to beat and that Jagex needed to make changes to it because it was way too difficult. However, around 2 days after release, Woox worked through the mechanics and became the first person to complete the Inferno. I believe at the time of this completion he had around 40,000 people watching on Twitch, and I decided to add his chat into the clip to show you guys just how crazy they were going. For me personally, this was one of the coolest moments in the history of gaming. If you're a part of this, you would understand how cool of an experience it was for the viewer. Having 8 to 10 streams open at once, watching streamers' view counts go from 100 to 25,000 when they got to the final boss. Altogether, it was an incredible thing to watch, and let's be honest, with how damn good Woox is at the game, we expected him to be the first person to complete it. Before moving on, there are some other really cool achievements worth mentioning regarding the Inferno, one being Woox also finishing it on a pure with 1 defense, 82 ranged, 80 mage, and 44 prayer. Lake being the first hardcore Ironman and also the first person to complete it without the use of pillars. UI Panda, the first to complete it on an Ultimate Ironman account. You will also notice from this clip that he's doing it with an Armadillo crossbow and not a twisted bow. Jack, who in his own words is a no-hands Inferno. If you don't know who Jack is, he's the leader of Oblivion, which is one of the most well-known PVM clans in old school. Jack is also paralyzed from the neck down and uses a device known as a smart nav that allows him to control the game by moving his head and using a sip and puff switch for left and right clicks. In simpler terms, Jack is a complete legend who did the Inferno using his mouth. Finally, Shane, or by his Twitch name Cripplescape, who has a disease known as DMD, which is characterized by degeneration of muscles and weakness. He uses the same device as Jack that was previously mentioned, which tracks his head movements and in turn moves his mouse cursor. At the time I'm recording this video, the clip of Shane completing the Inferno is the most viewed clip on his channel and has over 150,000 views. Number 2, first player to complete the fight caves and receive a fire cape. While it may not be as nearly as difficult as the Inferno, attempting to complete the fight caves on accounts with lower stats can be a daunting challenge, and on March 2nd, 2013, just 8 days after the release of Old School, legendary PKer and YouTuber IceGiant99, more known by the community as Bonesaw, became the first person to complete the fight caves and obtain a fire cape. It is also worth noting that at this time he had 62 ranged, and if you look closely at the clip, you can see that when he finally killed Jad, he had only 1 prayer point left. He had almost 11,000 people watching him do this live on Twitch, and at the time, nearly 6 years ago, Twitch was nowhere near as popular as it is today, so to have 11,000 people watching then is an insane achievement on its own. Number 3, the first Theater of Blood completion. Just like the Inferno, the Theater of Blood was a piece of content released into the game with a promise of testing the player's ability to utilize every combat mechanic in the game perfectly to complete it. Players often refer to the Theater as Raids 2, however, unlike its predecessor, the Theater of Blood is a linear raid with no randomization. In this challenge, players form teams of up to 5 and go through rooms of different types of bosses, with there being 6 rooms in total. Upon its release, there was a counter added near the starting door that displayed the amount of times it has been completed, and also the amount of times it has been failed. Before it was completed for the first time, there was a total of a little over 21,000 failures. On June 8th, a day after the theater's release, a 5-man team consisting of Woox, Bodhi, Zulu, Cloud Badass, and Lake became the first to complete the theater with an overall raid time of 37 minutes and 24 seconds.
Right, I think
Come on, 3%.
Come on, hit.
Yes! Yes!
Yes.
Did we
Let's
get
go.
0%. It died. Yeah!
Yes. Nice. We did it.
I was in the cage. Oh, I was in the cage, man.
Of course, as we all know, everything in this game seems way too easy for Wooks, so with being one of the first to complete this not being enough, he decided that he wanted to be the first person to completely solo the theater. On September 4th, 2018, he did just this and became the very first person to complete the Theater of Blood alone. Honestly, Wooks amazes me. I never imagined someone would be able to do something this difficult solo, but hey, it's Wooks. He can basically do anything. Speaking of thinking of someone would never do this, next we have a hardcore Iron Man Golden Axe that has completed 100 of these raids. For those of you that don't follow the hardcore Iron Man game mode as much, unlike Raids 1, if you die in the theater, you lose your hardcore status, and since this is very much team-based, a single mistake from a teammate can result in your death. Doing even one of these is beyond risky on a hardcore, so to finish 100 is beyond insane. Number 4, first player to all pets. At the time this was achieved, there were a total of 40 pets in the game, and a number of players were within a few pets of being finished. However, on February 25th, 2018, Homer became the first person in Old School's history to have received every single pet drop in the game, with his final pet being the Bloodhound after 417 master clues. This first picture shows all 40 of the pets in his bank, but I am going to be using this picture that was made by one of his followers that shows which kill count or on what amount of experience each of his pets was received on. From looking through most of these, it's safe to say that Homer got very lucky on a ton of these, but when it comes to getting every pet, luck is definitely something that you want on your side. Number 5, first player to crack the clue. This is definitely one of the most notorious challenges Jagex has ever released to Old School. For the people that may not fully know what this challenge was, I'll try my best to explain it very briefly. In 2016, Jagex released Crack the Clue, a 4-week event in which once per week there would be a clue posted on a specific Old School forum post. This began on the 17th of June with the picture you see on your screen. It was up to players to find this location in-game and dig at the spot to receive a piece of Clue Hunter gear. You know, the gear that everyone uses at Wintertodt on starter Iron Man accounts. This is where it came from. This continued for 3 more weeks with an additional clue per week, until finally concluding with Jagex's final message of, for the final clue, it can be solved by combining elements of all 4 of the previous clues in order to find the location of the final piece in the Clue Hunter set, the Helm of Raedwald. With this challenge issued to the players, Jagex also promised that the first person to figure this out and find the helmet would forever be immortalized in the game. When the helmet is examined, it would show the username of the first player to find the helmet. Now, this was by no means a simple task. After months and months of flipping all 4 clues around and trying to overlay them on top of each other, and thinking of everything imaginable, still no one had been able to create a solution. This challenge led to many streams entirely dedicated to trying to solve this clue, and an entire subreddit was even created to throw ideas around. On July 18th, 2017, over a year after the challenge was issued, it was finally solved by a player named Pikachu Yip, who posted a video on YouTube of themselves with a helmet in their inventory. Of course, at first, everyone thought this video was fake, so it received a lot of hate. Also, Pikachu Yip decided to keep the solution to himself and not tell anyone how he solved it for a period of 1 to 2 weeks. This was a very unique challenge, and ever since it was completed, many players have been eagerly awaiting Jagex to announce Crack the Clue 2. Number 6, first notable drops to enter the game. For me personally, one of the most fun parts of Old School is racing to be the first person to accomplish something when new content is released. Whether that be racing to be the first to max in a new game mode, or be the first to receive a rare drop from a newly released boss. So for number 6, I'm going to be showing some of the first drops to enter the game, starting off with the first whip. When Old School was initially released, being the first person to reach Abyssal Demons and get a whip drop was an achievement on many players' minds. Going this far back, it was very hard to find much information surrounding this, but it was playing at the time, so it was easier to recall some of the information. The first whip in Old School was received by the player at 2192. He was using Summer Pies to boost, and I believe he was competing against 2 others. There was a rumor going on that the first whip was actually received by a player using Rings of Recoil, but this was found out to be false. The first Visage in the game was actually received by someone that is going to be very familiar to probably everyone, Foe. This was on March 6, 2013, 12 days after Old School's release, and also back when Foe went by the name Is My Strength Zero. He did stream back then as well, so this did happen on stream. There weren't many drops that I could find to fit this part of the list, but for the final one, this was something many Iron Men were working towards for a very long time, and this was to be the first person to get a sigil from Corp. On January 20th, 2016, Sig became the first Iron Man to get a sigil drop, receiving a spectral sigil on just 158 kill count. It's safe to say that his reaction to this drop was fair for how insane of an achievement this was. Number 7, first player to max an account. On October 27th, 2013, just 8 months after the release of Old School RuneScape, Jabram became the first person to reach 2,277 total and max his account. Today, many people know Jabram as the guy that has done 200 mil agility on multiple counts. I believe he has achieved either near or over 1 billion total agility experience on all of his accounts combined, but many people will be surprised knowing that he was also the first person to max. During the early days of Old School, players didn't play nearly as efficiently as they do today. Jabram was one of the select few that played incredibly macro efficiently, which was one of the main reasons he was able to beat out everyone in max so quickly. Number 8, first player to max an account without a bank. On July 17th, 2016, less than 2 years after the release of both the Ironman and the Ultimate Ironman modes, Lowlander became the first person in the history of RuneScape to max an account without being able to use a bank. In the Ultimate Ironman game mode, players are locked out of using their bank and have to rely solely on the space in their inventory to carry around their items, making this challenge one of the most difficult things in the game. To make this achievement even more insane, Lowlander was in the top 10 people to max an Ironman. Yes, this is including the normal Ironman game mode where players have access to a bank, but while being an ultimate. Being able to max an ultimate so quickly while methods for training the game mode were still being developed shows true mastery of the game, and this will always be one of the greatest achievements in Old School. Number 9, the first person to 200 million experience in every skill. At the current time I'm recording this video, Lynx Titan hasn't quite yet achieved 200 million experience in every skill, being a bit less than 50 million experience away, but it's safe to say that within the coming months he will be the first person to reach 200 million experience in every skill, and I know that everyone would agree with this. Lynx Titan has been playing a near consistent 16 to 17 hours a day since Old School's release, and he said that his plans once he reaches 200 mil all is to play on his alt account and go for 200 mil all yet again. 200 mil all on Old School is one of the craziest achievements in itself, but I know for a fact that what I'm about to say very few people are aware of. There is a player on RS3 known as Forsberg888, who's known for achieving 3 billion total experience in a single year back in 2014, and eventually climbing to rank 2 on the high scores right behind Drumgun. Now what is crazy about this is that Forsberg and Lynx Titan are actually the same person, so he was rank 1 on Old School while also being rank 2 on RuneScape 3. When I first heard about this, it blew my mind, and it's probably doing the same to those of you that are hearing it now. In my opinion, this is the most insane achievement in the history of RuneScape. Number 10, the first players to various levels and experience. For this part of the list, I wanted to go over some various level as well as experience achievements. Also, it is worth noting here that Old School has been out a pretty long time now, so there have been a large number of crazy achievements when it comes to these, but I wanted to share some of my personal favorites. Starting off, the first person to achieve a level 99 being Atrate, who reached level 99 thieving on February 28th, 2013, just 6 days after the game's release. Next, the first person to reach the max combat level of 126 was Zav777, and he achieved this on April 25th, 2013. The first player to ever reach 200 million experience in a skill was Suck It Losers, and he got 200 mil cooking experience on April 22nd, 2013. The first to ever reach 1 billion total experience was Vestfold, and he achieved this on August 5th, 2014. I'm only going to briefly mention these next two achievements here because they are covered in a lot more detail in Mac H's video. If you want to hear more about them, be sure to check out his video. Acid Soul is one of the more notorious Old School players, as he was the first person to achieve 200 mil mining experience, and he did this with a rank 2 in the skill having less than 60 million experience, so he pretty much beat out the rank 2 guy by 140 million experience. Finally, Paul No Life, who achieved 200 million runecrafting experience through just the use of nature runes, which I believe took him over 7,000 hours. That's going to conclude this video. I really hope you all enjoyed watching it. An insane amount of effort went into putting this together, so if you made it this far and enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate if you could drop a like. As always, if you have any ideas for future videos in this series, be sure to let me know in the comments, and I'll see you all next time.